Hello, and welcome to the Rough Edges podcast with Sarah I. Fox. In this podcast, I will guide you through my faith and mental health journey to dispel the stigma surrounding mental illness and to create an empowering resource for those who wish to discover more about these topics. I pray that this podcast will not only bless you, but that it will bring growth and healing to our communities. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Rough Edges. Today, I'm super excited for our conversation and for my guest, Mzwa. Manciya is a God-fearing family man, creative thinker, and committed educator whose life is anchored in faith, service, and purpose. He is an ambivert with a heart for community, a mind for strategy, and a spirit driven by compassion and deep conviction. His passion for mental health is deeply personal. Mzwa was diagnosed with depression and anxiety in 2011, ADHD in 2012, and bipolar type 1 disorder in 2013. These lived experiences became a catalyst for his role as an outspoken advocate, particularly among Black men and Christian communities where mental health is often misunderstood or silenced. His approach is rooted in spirituality and openness, encouraging honest, nuanced conversations that bridge the gap between faith, psychology, and personal struggle. He welcomes dialogue with people of all faiths, races, genders, and orientations, believing that everyone deserves a seat at the table of healing. Currently, Mzwa teaches at a high school run by an NGO in one of Cape Town's most vulnerable townships on Cape Flats. His work extends for beyond the classroom as he plays a vital mentoring role for young people navigating trauma, identity, poverty, and the pursuit of opportunity. His presence is both stabilizing and inspiring in a community that is often undeserved and overlooked. He holds 2 degrees, one in accounting and the other in teaching, and has achieved 15 distinctions across both qualifications. He is also a proud fellow of the prestigious Jakes Gerwell Fellowship, which continues to shape and support his growth as an educator and leader. Professionally, he has diverse work experience spanning education, financial advising, accounting, and client service. His background allows him to engage with both the technical and relational aspects of leadership, teaching, and entrepreneurship. He promotes wellness through gym training, intermittent fasting, clean eating, and spiritual grounding in nature. The ocean, sunset, stars, and sky are recurring sources of reflection and renewal in his life. His commitment to personal growth is matched by his desire to help others break through self limiting beliefs and access their potential. Welcome, Mzwa.
Hi, Sarah. Thank you for having me. I'm so happy that we're finally doing this. Thank you for having me.
Yes, absolutely. Now, I'm excited about our topic for today, but before we dive in, what are 3 things that motivate you on a daily basis and why?
Okay, Sarah, thank you so much for that question. My first thing that I need and I can't live without is my anchors. And by my anchors, I'm referring to my daughter. She's 9 years old. And I'm referring to my mother and my cousin sister, Pamela. And I'm referring to my sister and her mother who live close to me here. They've been a steady rock and an anchor for me, especially in my journey with bipolar type 1, ADHD, and anxiety, and other things, being a gifted child with all these challenges I've faced. My second thing is purpose. Having purpose really drives me on the days I don't want to get up from bed and I'm not feeling 100%. So definitely when it comes to purpose. And my final one is creativity, creation. We are made in God's image. And, Psalms that says, ye are gods. God has made us in his image and gave us the power to create. So whether we're creating poetry, whether we're creating writing, some people can make sculptures. Just creating is that energy to create. It gives me life, and I can't survive without that energy. It can be something fun, a random tweet that doesn't have to be the most coherent or the best. It can be a random drawing. We have these funny apps now. We can draw anything. We're not the best artists when it comes to everything. So I'm not the best drawer, not the best painter, but you do these things for fun. I'm not Dave Chappelle, not the best comedian, but it's nice to say things online that I think are funny, to have fun with it. It's all creation. So creation and purpose, and my anchors being my daughter, Kim Kamva Manciya, Pam, and my mother. They've played a role. So those are my three answers.
Yes, absolutely. I love all of those, especially what you said about your anchors and your community. That is definitely essential, especially when you are dealing with mental health conditions. And also, I love that you talked about purpose, and it is a driver for getting you to not only think about the goals that you have for your life, but it gives you the motivation to want to complete them. And with creativity, I'm right there with you. Like, I love writing, I love poetry, I just love all of those things. And I'm also not the best artist or drawer or like with the painting and everything, but hey, it's creativity, it gives you life for sure.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah, so once again, our topic for today is all about men's mental health and what that looks like, not only in the church community and the Christian community, but also in the Black community, specifically the South African community. And so, as a first question, can you share just a little bit about your mental health experience, like how you got diagnosed and how you were able to manage your mental health?
Oh, okay, no, definitely. Thank you so much, Sarah, for the opportunity once again for having me here. I can't thank you enough. I really enjoy your podcast. I enjoy listening to you and to listening to all the guests that you have. And I want to highlight how grateful we are for the series that you're running with men's mental health. Yeah, I'm glad that through you inviting me, we're going to speak about South African the African context, and in particular, the Black man context. For me, people with bipolar can talk a lot. So I'll try to shrink it as much as I can. My journey with bipolar started in 2013, and my journey with depression and anxiety started in 2011. And my journey with ADHD, and I was a late bloomer here, started in 2012. I do remember having an experience in 2010 when I was in what we call matric, which is grade 12, the school leaving year. I remember having an experience. I could describe it as if I was teleported into space or something like that, something crazy like that. But people with bipolar, especially bipolar type 1, or if they've experienced psychosis, mania, stuff like that, it won't be strange to them. And we hate using the word normal because there's no such thing as normal, but to normal people in inverted commas, that might just be a crazy fictional phenomena. Like, what do you mean you are in space? I remember having an experience like that. And funny enough, my church was more of the hey, I don't understand, but I'm also not going to judge you. So props to them for that. Because when I experienced that, they just dealt with it the way they understood it. And we are going to pray for your boy. I had accepted Christ at a young age. I had been baptized and I was an active member in church, having a platform to speak even at a young age and moving crowds. So I was definitely at a young age standing for myself. My mom was also a born again Christian. Between the both of us, the church came and they prayed, and it seemed to have gone away. Before that, I had never experienced real depression or anxiety to the levels I experienced when I was much older. I was accepted to University of Cape Town, of course, coming from a small town called Umzindo in the south coast of KZN. KZN is the province of Shaka Zulu. Just to give more context, my heritage is from Mount Frere, which is in Eastern Cape. I'm 100% closer, like Nelson Mandela or Oliver Tambo. I was accepted into University of Cape Town. First year went well, but as time went by, I did struggle with anxiety. I did start struggle with depression. I did see a therapist, which was something new to me. And that's why I will always be grateful for universities in general, but shout outs to UCT in particular, because they do level the playing field a bit. For South Africa, race plays a huge role when you talk about distribution of services and wealth. So for most of us Black people, especially people in my situation who came from the townships and the rural areas, we did not always have traditional therapy. We had therapy in other ways. We have other forms of culture and various ways. But when it comes to traditional therapy, we do not have funds for that. So that can be going to a psychologist or a counselor. Usually that's reserved for more extreme cases. And the backlog that exists in the government system means that majority of us do not get to experience or use traditional therapy.
Hello again. Before you dive into the rest of today's episode, I just wanted to say thank you so much for your support and for hitting that play button. If you want to expand on that support, here are 3 ways that you can do so. 1. Leave a review. If anything in today's episode resonated with you, or you would want to share about how the podcast changed your life, you can do so by leaving a review on Apple Podcast or Podchaser. 2. Check out our shop. The Rough Edges shop is a faith-based, women of color owned online shop where you can get a variety of products from tote bags, journals, t-shirts, and more. 20% of the proceeds go to a mental health organization. So check it out at roughedgespodcast.com/shop. 3. Connect on social media. Rough Edges is on a wide variety of social media platforms, including Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, TikTok, and more. If you want to connect outside of listening to the podcast episodes, you can do so on these platforms. If you have any questions, you can check out the episode description or stay to the end for more information. Now, enjoy your episode.
But when we get to university, in my case, University of Cape Town, all of a sudden for free, especially if you come from a low income background, you can see a psychologist and have ongoing sessions with them. And you can actually be referred to other. They realize that there's certain patterns that signify ADHD, which is why I was diagnosed at a late stage as an adult in 2012. Through that process, they referred me to educational psychologists, and other tests were done, and I was diagnosed with ADHD and got medicated. I stuck with a medication called Ritalin for a while, and the mix of Ritalin and antidepressants apparently was also a contributing factor to how I actually had my first manic episode. So 2013, around October, November, for final exams, that's when I became manic. For me, it felt like I was being paralyzed. I was having a stroke. Of course, it was my first experience with bipolar. I didn't know anything about bipolar. I had never even heard the word bipolar before 2013. There were a few people around me. I had some funds. My mother was unemployed at the time, and that was part of the stress as well. I had to assist here and there. And I remember making the plan that I will not be able to work a student job where I get paid 500 Rand or 1,000 Rand a month. I need some serious money. So that's when I actually decided to start my own business. I started Step Ahead Marketing Solutions, which was a marketing business, but it also worked with a Canva Foundation, which I also started, which worked with, the homeless people, providing them shelter, blankets, food, and also other areas of NGO work. But particularly the biggest one was with the homeless. What I'm trying to highlight is when you have bipolar, at that point it was undiagnosed, you can have all these beautiful ideas for business, ideas for NGOs, ideas for this and that, but you're working a so on a solo journey. There's nobody to call you out. The boundaries aren't there. So that's when anchors are important. And that's why honesty is important, because sometimes you hide these things. So no one is actually asking you, dude, are you sure you're going to cope with all of this? Why? So for me, it was stacking up a lot of things, all that stress piled up. And then the big bang happened, and then ended up being hospitalized in 2013. It was my first time being hospitalized at all, actually, besides probably my birth. It was my first time being hospitalized. It was a very different experience. I remember I had this grand idea, and I know people with bipolar will think of these ideas and relate. When you think about this majestic way you want to be generous and have this huge 21st birthday, invite people who aren't even close to you. I remember a friend of mine till this day called Oyama, where she even asked, because at that time we didn't know each other that well. She was asking, are you sure there's no mistake with this invite? Because I sent it electronically. You didn't invite the wrong person. But that was the person. I went and paid the most expensive price for a cake, planned, booked, and I could say I lost it all because I ended up being in hospital for my birthday. A few friends were there, and the doctors were nice enough to allow us to actually cut the cake. So they trusted us with the knife, psychotic person and all. We cut the cake and everything. And yeah, we got that event made me very close with my baby sister and her mother. We got very close. They were very supportive. My family was very supportive. But it showed a difference because I remember my uncle, who still lives here in Cape Town in the same place, by the way. He was avoiding coming to see me. I realized that sometimes when it comes to times of crisis, for some reason, especially I'm going to speak about South Africa culturally, it's the women that show up. Men don't like to see, especially in Africa, men don't want to be there for the birth or something like that. There's certain things that men don't want to see. They don't want to see you in that state. They don't want
Mm.
to see their grandmas or grandmas, needing to be washed. My uncle didn't want to see me in that state, I guess. But he eventually came when my other uncle told him, dude, Mzwa is in hospital and he needs you to go. I'm spending a lot of time on the first one because it was the most significant. After that, I was stable all the way till 2019. I was doing my honors to be a chartered accountant, which didn't go well. I was facing depression and anxiety. That led me to be hospitalized. Luckily, I still had medical aid. I was sick for most of the year, couldn't write tests. I tried again through UNISA to study University of South Africa, which is the biggest university in Africa. I tried with UNISA to complete my CTA, which is basically certificate theory in accounting, postgraduate diploma in accounting. And that was mixed with work in auditing, stressful deadlines. You remember COVID happened, isolation happened, facing your own demons, working till 3 a.m., toxic bosses,
Mm.
barely sleeping, and chasing deadlines. I then got psychotic again. I got mania. My doctor or psychiatrist in 2013 had described bipolar as what sugar is to a diabetic, stress is to someone with bipolar. And I've seen that so much. That's stress led me to eventually have to resign. You know, those assisted resignations where you kind of have to resign, but they're not firing you because it's illegal, but you kind of forced to resign. So I resigned in 2020, took some time off, took a sabbatical as advised by a doctor. A doctor even advised, try to get me to be on disability. I actually did try, and the situation in South Africa is such that there are so many people who need assistance. We would go there around 2 a.m. to join the line, but it wouldn't be enough. You wouldn't be helped. So people who are getting help were people who are sleeping, spending the whole night. And I remember it was cold nights that people were doing this for just a small 2,000 rands. 2,000 rands in dollars should be around, I think, 110 or 100. And that's supposed to last you. So people were struggling for that. I couldn't get the disability then. I lived my life, went back home, and then teaching had always been a passion of mine because with my personality and my diagnosis, I have many passions, parts that I chase, jack of all trades. And teaching was one of those trades that I was passionate about. I was lucky. I got a scholarship called Jakes Fellowship, and I went to study teaching at UCT again. Before it was accounting, now it's teaching. I did that in 2022. I lost my cousin brother. We were very close in a very violent way. It sent me into a depression. The year I didn't fail, I did well actually academically, but I had to halfen the load. The workload was too much. So I had to finish in 2023. Did that, long story short, graduated through a miracle from God as well, because I had funding issues when it comes to the second year. And then spent 2024 unemployed, or rather self-employed, but again, someone with bipolar. Some of us struggle with structure, saying no to ideas, passions, or we can be blown by the wind, as some of my poems will say. I was doing a lot of things, a lot of passions, business, charity, but also being very spiritual. I was meditating, going for walks and enjoying nature, exercising, all of that. I went to hospital again for mania and psychosis in 2024. And yeah, that's my story. That's where I am right now. It's 2025. I did come out of it, and luckily I found a job in October. It was still stressful because I was looking for a structure, not just tutoring and other things. I wanted to have structure. That's what I've been praying for. And I need to remind myself that when I'm finding the job difficult, that you actually prayed for this. That was
Mhm.
2024. And that's where I am right now, 2025. There's been some challenges here and there, but I'm still praying for stability. And I think there is some stability here and there. So God has been faithful. Yeah. Sorry for the long.
No, that was actually amazing, and I'm inspired by your story because I noticed a couple of things. One, you had community around you, and I would say that's like one of the most important elements in dealing with a mental health condition is having people that you can turn to and a team that you can be able to get services from. And I think it was really cool that your college was able to help you get those services that you needed in terms of seeking mental health professionals. And I also love that your family and even your church community was rallying around you, trying to help you. And like you said, in the best way that they could and the best way that they knew how. And I feel like that's very
Yes.
touching because not a lot of people have that. And not a lot of people have those church communities to even be able to speak about mental health issues. So I love that element of community for you. And I also love that you were very resilient. You never gave up. Despite getting hospitalized, you still wanted to do your education, manage your career. You were self-employed. You were doing entrepreneurship. Even though, like you said, and I experienced this too with bipolar disorder, we do have a lot of ideas circling around and we do want to do a lot of different things, but you were able to execute some of those plans and you were able to really act on some of those ideas, which led you to do mental health advocacy. I want to commend you for, despite your challenges, you were able to be persistent in not only achieving your goals, but achieving wellness as well.
Thank you so much, Sarah. That means a lot coming from you. I really appreciate what you said. I appreciate your words and I appreciate your podcast. I love how you passionately chase this purpose that you've been given without even caring about whether you're the most popular podcast like Joe Rogan or not. The message is still there, and there are those of us who are watching. So for those who are watching, you're doing that and you're doing service to your guests as well. It's good to be seen, like those words of affirmation, because sometimes I get that feedback of resilience and I'm like, oh well, I didn't even think about it that way. So shout out to you, man. Those positive words mean a lot.
Oh, yeah, of course. We also connected on Instagram, and I just loved your page, Bipolar Black Bear. I was in awe about how you talked about your mental health journey, but also the way that you use creativity and, like, the memes and the like humor posts. I really gravitated towards that, and we clicked almost instantly, and it was
Yes,
just
yes,
great. Yeah.
yes, no, definitely. Thanks, definitely.
Yeah.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, of course. And so I wanted to talk more about your mental health advocacy. And I know that you also have a holistic personal philosophy called the MMM system. So can you talk about how you became a mental health advocate and what that system is?
Oh, definitely. Thank you so much for that question, Sarah. So for me, being a mental health advocate is not something that I rushed. My main priority was and remains the healing, my personal healing, making sure that I'm okay. Before I fix my brother's eye, just make sure that I'm okay and, to find my own purpose, find my own journey, find out what God has called me for before I become an evangelist, telling people how to live their life, calling them to a healthy living, what to do. Even until today, I'm an advocate for mental health, but I do talk about finances as well. I was a financial advisor. I do have that work experience. I've followed a lot of financial advisors and content creators on personal finance. I've read books. I've been that brother for my sisters where I buy them books on personal finance as a gift. Maybe you're expecting a Nike shoe and I'll buy you a book on personal finance, and maybe it will be written by a black woman as well so that you can relate. I'm that kind of guy. It starts with, and I know this might seem very Western and very selfish, but my journey and my calling definitely prioritizes self. It prioritizes the cup overflowing. And then with that overflow is what blesses firstly my family and friends, and then society and the public. So I want to clarify that I don't necessarily have this huge calling where there's an urgency to save the entire world or tell people what to do. It's mostly my journey and my public record of my journey, and that is what seems to help people. So I do tend to I live as, people have different experiences of mental health. I've got a cousin who has schizophrenia, so I'm aware of people who have paranoia in their journey. If anything, I'm too careless. You could probably hack me. You could write a smear campaign against me. You could take me down if you wanted to, because my priority is never in hiding or protection. I usually just trust God for those things. I see the best in people. So, with that being said, I live my journey publicly. In my journey, when I first got diagnosed with bipolar around 2013, this is now 2014. There's some wonderful women that I met, and in particular now these two women are white women who were, those people who have professional jobs in mental health, but embrace a holistic view on things. They introduced me to things like shadow work, things like death of the ego, stuff like that. So through them and my own journey, I tend to not care about those things as the average person. So it's become easier for me to talk about mental health. Even my psychiatrist has written in notes when I was being transferred from KZN to say has a weight problem because of medication. People think we make these things up. We all affected differently by medication, but it does happen.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the Rough Edges podcast with Sarah I. Fox. If you want more updates on the podcast, you can follow on Instagram at rough.edges.podcast, or you can visit the official podcast website at roughedgespodcast.com. Thanks again for listening and have a wonderful day.